One day, Charlie decided to take Mark on a sledging adventure, so he drove for what seemed like ages and finally got to our destination deep in the middle of nowhere. Charlie got out the car and moved from the boot a spade and a sledge and then a bottle of Pepsi Max. He then said,
after you started drinking it,
before placing it into the sledge. He closes the boot and then proceeds up the hill with the bottle of Pepsi Max in the sledge, as if to entice Mark to follow him into the deep wood on top of the hill. As he walked further, he stopped for a brief moment and said to himself,
I told him not to drink my Pepsi Max, but would he listen to me? No. Now he's going to pay. Really pay.
Earlier on that day, before setting off for the sledging adventure, Mark decided to get one drink for the road. So he goes into the kitchen, reaches for a glass in one of the cupboards, opens the fridge door and helps himself to the last glass of Pepsi Max. Then he taps the bottle to ensure that every last drop has been drained, screws on the cap, takes a sip, and places the empty bottle back into the fridge. He takes the last few gulps from his glass and places the empty glass down on the work surface before leaving the kitchen to wait for Charlie in the car. Charlie, also wanting a final drink before his departure, went into the kitchen after Mark reached for a clean empty glass in anticipation of filling it with a cooling drink called Pepsi Max. He opens the fridge, grabs the bottle to find that it is empty. Sometime later, Mark inquired,
Why have you bought a spade? For this.
Charlie, wanting to hide the evidence of what he'd done, proceeded to push Mark off the hilltop and then started throwing shovelful after shovelful of snow from the hilltop onto the poor unfortunate soul below. Charlie could not cover Mark with snow from the safety of the hilltop, so went down to finish the job properly by covering Mark's body with snow to make it look like a tragic hiking accident. He continued to shovel on snow, starting with the middle, moving on to the legs, and finally the head, keeping that for last just in case Charlie's victim came around. The last few shovel loads was applied until Mark could not be seen and blended in perfectly with the surroundings. As if by guilt, Charlie decided to place a fresh bottle of Pepsi Max above Mark's head, as if to serve as a ghoulish tombstone, almost mocking what Mark did earlier by finishing the last glass. After giving it some thought, he returns to the scene of crime and thinks, why should I leave him this? After all, he did have the last glass. He picks up and dusts the snow off the bottle like a wine connoisseur would wipe the dust off a maturing bottle of wine, and makes his way back. Exhausted after all his shovelling, he decides to open the bottle of Pepsi Max. Struggling to remove the cap and unaware what dangers lurked behind him, he continued to open the bottle. The zombie Mark arises from his snowy tomb, seeking to quell his hunger for the elixir called Pepsi. Charlie, scared of being killed, throws the bottle of Pepsi Max towards the beast to distract him. The zombie Mark grabs the bottle and heads up the hill.